Yo, what's up? I'm Eldritch Terror, and welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things spooky, scary, and have a little bit of fun. Today we're going to be talking about a film that I unfortunately neglected when I did my 2025 horror movie roundup, and that is a bone-chilling period piece called The Damned. And when I say bone-chilling, I quite literally mean cold. This film is very cold. Taking place in a fishing village in Iceland, the cold plays almost as much of a factor here as the zombies. See, before a film even begins, our whole little community here is starving and freezing to death. You see, it's been a particularly harsh winter this year, and everybody's already starting to feel the repercussions of that. People are stressed, the morale is low, depression is setting in, and they just gotta survive through the winter. The harsh of this winter is explored through brilliant cinematography throughout this film. In the modern day, it's real hard to talk about period pieces, especially horror-centric period pieces, without comparing them to Robert Eggers' work. And I know I've been talking about him a lot on this channel recently, but it'll pass. But the director and the cinematographer here really get it. They nail it in and they nail it down. The acting here is great. Everybody really sells their performances for me. And something that I really like about this film is that the biggest threat within this movie is set up to be completely ambiguous. Is it the harsh of the cold? Is it the sailors' folklore that drives them to paranoia and divides them? Or perhaps it is something a little even more sinister. The Damned focuses around a central idea of survivor's guilt, and it embodies that through a legendary Icelandic myth called the Draugr. The Draugr are just like any other typical undead of sorts. They're reanimated corpses, but they rest within their coffins. They've often been referred to as a certain type of vampire, kinda. And in this film, they seem to rise as punishment to wreak havoc on this small community for refusing to help them when they could. Another big theme at play here is seeing just how far the human spirit will go to preserve itself when it's in danger. When flight or fight kicks in, so does paranoia, and it completely destroys this little community. But that's about really all I can say without getting into spoilers, so let's jump into it. The Damned is a 2025 internationally co-produced horror film, and this is the directorial debut by Thordur Palsson. The story here was written by Jamie Hannigan based on an original story by Palsson, and the film stars Joe Cole and Odessa Young. The film begins with our character Ava, who is a young widow trying to run a winter fishing outpost inherited by her late husband. The fishing outpost is an isolated Arctic bay, with the 3-day mountain journey to the nearest village snowed shut for the winter, and the inlet of the bay made treacherous with jagged rocks they call the Teeth. These teeth are with which claimed the life of her husband, Magnus, in the previous winter. Ava now owns the outpost and rents equipment, boats, and lodging, as well as providing other services such as cooking and cleaning to the teams of adventurous fishermen willing to brave the harsh winter conditions. Inexperienced and not a natural leader, Ava frets over the current tense state of the outpost. While in typical years, a man could easily net a small fortune by spring, this year's catch has been so lean that by winter solstice, the outpost has nearly run out of supplies and resorted to eating their bait. As the team readies to row their longboat out for another day of fishing one morning, they witness a large sailing shipwreck upon the Teeth. Some of the men went to row out to offer rescue, but Ragnar, the helmsman and leader of the crew, is cautionary against this action. They lack the food to support any survivors who might also swarm a rescue vessel, and to make matters worse, the ship is foreign. The decision is then left up to Ava, who, from an abundance of caution, says they will not offer rescue, and will not fish that day out of the respect for the dying that they can hear from the shore as they watch the ship sink under the waves. A much-needed barrel of salted pork from the now-lost ship washes up on the shore. Worried that further floating rations will be lost to sea, the team and Ava now roll out to the Teeth in the dark to search before the tide turns. Rather than supplies, they discover survivors from the foreign ship. Unable to understand each other, the survivors swarm the small boat, pulling the crew into the water and threatening to capsize them all in their desperation to climb aboard. Ragnar is drowned in this event, and left with no other option, the fishermen beat off the survivor. Wait, hold up, pause. My bad. And left with no other option, the fishermen beat the survivors to death, killing them and saving themselves. The bodies wash up on the beach the next day, and as the bodies are placed into boxes to await the time when the ground won't be too hard to dig for burial, Helga, Eva's aging and deeply superstitious chairwoman, cautions that the bodies may come back as Draugr, evil revenant creatures fueled by pure hatred and rage who can manipulate people's minds with terrifying dreams. So after hearing the tale from Helga, the community begins acting out a set of rituals to try to banish the Draugr away. They try by binding the bodies of the deceased with rope, putting iron nails in their feet, and rotating the coffins 3 times in order to try to disorientate the spirits. Helga even attempts to warn Ava that the only true way to kill the Draugr would be to burn it. I really like the way that the legend of the Draugr is laid out here by Helga. The ambiance of the whole room being lit only by the fireplace just hits so well for me. And the knocking bit that they sampled for the trailer is beautiful. If there's one thing that this movie did right here, it was set up specific imagery and sound design that they knew were going to leave their mark on audiences. Helga places charms and hexes to ward the Draugr off, and it seems to be looking up when the crew catch a bumper crop of fish, solving their food shortage for the season. However, Helga and the food go missing by morning, and soon, Ava and the crew are experiencing terrible waking and sleeping visions of human-like creatures who are constantly nearby, crouching in corners and stalking them. They even find wet footprints left on the floor up to the ravine. The seamen begin dying in horrific ways here, often driven to do it to themselves by what they see. The way that madness kind of spreads like a disease throughout this film is absolutely jarring, to say the least. The community tears itself to shreds, and people start committing because of the despair. At one point, a young fisherman, who is the love interest of Ava and was also friends with her husband before he died, slips on some ice and hurts his face. He messes himself all up and he has to go to Ava to get some stitches put in. And when he later returns to her in the movie, he is just not alright. I mean, the dude straight up slits his throat right there in front of her. After discovering one of the coffins being empty, the outpost inhabitants conclude that they must be being haunted by the Draugr and first try to hunt it. But this yields disastrous and fatal results, with only Eva and the youngest 2 fishermen left, and having been without food for days, they decide to abandon the post and try for the village, hoping the Draugr is too slow to catch them before they reach civilization and aid. Ava hears the thing which has been stalking them up the stairs in the dwelling. She hides, but is grabbed and forced into confrontation, wherein she shoots the being which has been harassing them all, and then quickly douses everything with alcohol and sets the building on fire. She runs out to meet the 2 youngest fishermen, telling them she succeeded in killing the Draugr, and as the 3 of them watch the building burn and listen to the screams of the creature, Ava relives the confrontation. Alright, so brace yourself. This is where we're going to start to divide audiences a little bit. We're going to do the twist. We see that the being was a foreign sailor who had miraculously survived the wreck and then chose to steal their food and terrorize them in revenge. Unable to understand him, but knowing he was responsible for the deaths of her companions and accurately reading that he meant further harm, Ava shot and then burned him, declaring him as a now defeated Draugr to her friends, who must still survive the winter with her. And thus The Damned closes, showing to us that it was more so an experiment in what goes on within the human psyche than an actual trip into the paranormal. The story that we were set up here to explore was what happens when people just completely shatter, especially around this time when they're surrounded by so many different stories. I mean, the kinds of legends that sailors would pass around a few drinks at the table were absolutely insane. They thought that actual giant monsters and sea creatures were swimming around in that ocean. Of course people would believe that stuff like this would happen. But for every tale where the ghosts end up being real and everybody ends up dead, it can be a little refreshing to see something like this thrown into the mix, where we explore a more down-to-earth take on things while also getting into some of those older legends and things of that sort. But what did you think about The Damned? Have you seen it yet? Comment below and let me know. I cannot help but relate this to films like The Witch and The Lighthouse per se, because of how sunken in the period that they are, and the ways that they subtly try to explore the paranormal. For me personally, I want to say that if the Draugrs had ended up being real, I would have appreciated that a little bit more. That would have made the movie hit a little bit better for me. But to each their own. What do you think? Also, let me know in the comments what your favorite period piece horror is. Maybe I'll check it out and make a video about it. The Damned was my first horror movie for 2025. What was yours, or what's yours gonna be? Either way, I hope you enjoyed my video today. If you did, be sure to send it to a friend you think might enjoy it too. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this one. As always, I've been Elder's Terror, and whether your day's been going good or bad today, I hope it gets better.